this Chiefs game. So one thing that I've seen a lot about is, the Chiefs, are they that team? McConnell, do you think they're that team? Do you think they're a good team? Do you think they're going to compete for a playoff spot? Do you think they're going to make the playoffs at this point? Before you answer, though, one other thing. They have no games remaining with teams that have losing records. Or maybe it's one.
Wow.
They basically have all 500 or above teams. And a lot of that is because their division is all 500 or above as well, which makes it a lot harder. The wild card spots in the AFC are super tight. It seems like almost every single team outside of the Jets and the Dolphins and the Texans are competing. It honestly feels like that. I might be missing someone, but I don't know. Is that all of it? Is it every team? Oh, and the Jags. It's almost every single team in the AFC is competing. So do you think they're going to make the playoffs? Do you think they're good enough? Because I'm skeptical right now.
Are the Chiefs a good team? No. Can they be a good team with this roster? I think so. I think they have the potential to do that. When I look at this team and the way that they built it, I was talking about this last night. I mean, we've been texting about it, like what's up with the Chiefs? Here's my take on the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Patrick Mahomes comes in, and I got to say, I think Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. So Patrick Mahomes comes in, and they get all this success, and he's dominating his quote-unquote rookie year, his first year starting. They don't win the Super Bowl. They don't make it to the Super Bowl. But the next year, they get to the Super Bowl. They win it. They beat the Niners, a terrible team. Just kidding. But the next year, they get to the Super Bowl. They play against the Buccaneers, all that stuff. Mahomes has gotten his massive contract, the $500 million, the $500 million man. And I think they got caught up in it. The pre-Super Bowl game, against the 49ers, I think it was The Rock doing the intros, right? And he calls them the Legion of Zoom. It was really stupid. I thought it was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life. But it's like they fell in love with this concept that everybody kept talking about. Patrick Mahomes can step back and he can throw it up to anybody. If anybody with speed gets behind you, Mahomes can get it there. And so they obviously have Tyreek Hill, but Tyreek Hill isn't a speedster. He's a good route runner. He's not a perfect route runner, but he's a good route runner. And then he's got great hands, and he's also fast.
Did you say he's not a speedster?
I said he's not like a pure speedster.
He's not just only a deep threat.
Yeah, that's what I mean by speedster. I
thought you're saying Tyreek Hill's not fast. I was like,
McConnell. He's slow. He's the slowest wide receiver I've ever seen. If Jarvis Landry had any speed, it would be the opposite of Tyreek Hill. No. Tyreek Hill is not just a deep threat. The dude can do it all. But they go out and they're like, oh, we got Tyreek Hill. Okay. Let's get Mecole Hardman. Let's get Pringle. Let's get these guys with no route running ability, poor hands, but they're fast. DeMarcus Robinson. And they're like, okay, we have all these guys. But you know who they used to have, Matt? Sammy Watkins. A guy with good speed, but he can run routes and he can catch. He has a bit of an injury problem, but when he's healthy, he's a good wide receiver. He's not amazing, but he's good, and he can do his job. And they go out there and they're like, okay, we're drafting. What do we need? Okay, we kind of need a running back. Well, let's get flashy, right? Let's not go with Jonathan Taylor, the surefire pound-it running back. Let's not go with the shifty DeAndre Swift, who most people had as the number one running back in the class, or the kind of very versatile J.K. Dobbins. They say, you know what? Let's get really tricky, and let's get really cute. Let's take the big risk on the LSU guy, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And they take Clyde. And I think that they got too cute. And you see it not only with the way they built their roster, but the way that they play. I don't know if you were watching the Giants game, but I saw one of the worst plays I've ever seen in my entire life.
You're talking about the one where they flipped it behind?
What? Like I watched that and I was like, they're getting too cute. It's unnecessary. I am a fan of using the motion. I think motioning is a great thing in the NFL. It helps you diagnose if it's man or zone coverage, helps you get the defense in a difficult position. A lot of great things that come from motioning. But sometimes it seems like they're motioning just to motion. Like they're just doing extra things because they don't need to. Mahomes is jump passing when he doesn't need to. I'm okay with jump passing. I'm not like, hey, don't ever do anything different. Do the sidearms, do the jump passes. Don't do the no look. That's stupid. That is like almost never necessary. But my big issue with it is they're getting too cute. And Mahomes is getting too cute. And he's going back to the Texas Tech Mahomes where he feels like he has to do everything. But they built the roster being too cute, and they were trying to figure out this new way to play. And it's just not enough. You got to have some route running.
I think there's another factor too.
What is
the
it?
Orlando Brown signing makes no sense for what they try to do at all.
The slowest offensive.
We talked about that.
NFL?
I mean, you've seen him the most out of a lot of people. You've watched him a lot more than Chiefs fans have because he was in Baltimore first. And I remember we were talking about it, you're like, I don't like you were happy. You were like, yes, we got him. Like we got the Chiefs to pay him. You were hyped.
Yeah, because the issue, okay, so he was obviously playing in Baltimore. The Ravens had to scheme around Orlando Brown Jr., especially in the run game, because they couldn't get him to the next level. That was the issue. They always had to have a swing tackle coming over if they needed somebody to get to the outside to allow Lamar to get outside, or JK or Gus Edwards. They always had to get like, yeah, he's good if you're standing still and you're a quarterback and you're in the pocket, he's decent. If you're Lamar Jackson, if you're Patrick Mahomes, if you're Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, and you step out of that pocket, he's not blocking anymore. If they're containing, he's not blocking. Like, you can just get around him. And that's his main issue is like, he's like a wall, but you can go around this wall. Okay. Like, that's the main issue with him. So,
and I think we were talking about it the other day too. They've been containing Mahomes a lot better.
Yeah.
And they don't have a great line.
Because he can't hold the edge rusher to the spot, and they just shift around him, and he tries to stay with them, but he can't. There's a reason why Lamar Jackson's scrambles are very rarely him breaking the pocket. It's Lamar Jackson backs up, right up the middle. Those are all of his biggest runs, are all up the middle runs because Orlando Brown couldn't hold the contain. And that's why I was very happy.
I feel like last night's game against the Giants, and like, yes, they won, but it kind of shows where the Chiefs are at. Like, you're going to beat the Giants by 3. They didn't even have Saquon. Like, we know how much different they look when they have Saquon. They look so much better. At least I feel like that.
And Booker looked like he was Saquon.
Booker looked pretty good. I don't know, man. It's rough. Their defense is also Swiss cheese. Their defense is terrible. Now, luckily, Chris Jones is an absolute monster. So every once in a while, he'll just make an insane play, and I'll be like, all right, they're okay. Chris Jones is there to save the day, but
he's not in the spot anymore.
Huh?
He's playing edge rusher. What is he doing?
He played inside a lot last night, at least.
Yeah, last night he did. But
he's also been hurt. Yeah. And, like, when he's hurt, they have been toast. I mean, but that's why they've been losing, is because it doesn't seem like. Also, I like that you brought up how they just have like all these fast receivers that, no, not trying to be a dick, but they suck. Like, Hardman isn't good. Pringle's not good. I like to make like jokes about Pringle because he literally just came out of like nowhere. I'd never heard of him before, and then he started making catches like last year. But he's not very good. They just aren't good. Jet McKinnon is one of their running backs. Darrell Williams. Thank you, Darrell Williams. You got me a fantasy win last week, but I mean, he's not very good if we're being honest. Clyde, for spitting a first-round pick on Clyde, talk about a whiff. That's a big whiff. But at the end of the day, of course they have a chance. They have Patrick Mahomes. He's able to really like pull some games just out like often. I mean, he's still doing that now. I feel like, I don't know if last night was exactly that, but I feel like they just kind of scooted on by. I don't know if they make the playoffs this year, though. The AFC is that good. I think
it's tough.
If the Chargers win the division, then you have potentially 3 teams from the AFC North, potentially 4 teams from the AFC North. The Patriots are in the mix. The Titans and the Colts. The Colts would have to come up a lot, so I don't even know if I'll include them. But it's going to be tough. And they're going to be able to get like a 6 or a 7. And we talked about it before. Like, if they get to the playoffs, like, yeah, like they can just try to outscore everyone. I mean, that's what they do now. But usually, not last night, but usually like it's about like, all right, like let's just put up like 45 and hope that this team doesn't put up more. But it's not sustainable. You've already seen Mahomes get jacked up a couple times. I don't know. I think they did. I think the worst thing they did though was just with the offensive line and the Orlando Brown signing. To me, it doesn't make any sense from a scheme standpoint. Also the Clyde pick. He was like a third. He was like pretty.
I want to talk about the Clyde pick.
Yeah.
Because I talked about this with Mike last night, and we will have to get Mike on the show at some point. But so the biggest thing that I talked with him about was he has this theory, and I completely agree with the theory, where basically when you have these great college football teams, that LSU team was great. It was an all-time great team. It seems like a lot of guys get picked off that team that shouldn't be, that aren't really that good. But because they got to play with so many great players and they were on such a historic team, they get overdrafted. Because if you looked at what that team did, it was pass the football. And you look at the guys that were involved in the passing game from that team, how are they doing in the NFL? Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Terrace Marshall. They're all doing pretty darn good. But then you look at the other guys on that team that weren't part of, like, yeah, they had a good defense, but let's talk about the other guys. Grant Delpit, taken just out of the first round. Patrick Queen, first round. Kaylavon Chason, first round. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, first round. It's like they were dragged in, and it happens with Alabama all the time because Alabama's great. We're like, oh yeah, they play for Alabama.
But Bama's even different because Bama's like this guy.
No, it's only like the historic Bama teams.
Yeah. But I mean, like this, like for Bama, it's like this guy, 5-star coming out of college or out of high school. He's the best player ever to come out of Idaho. You know, it'll be like some random state, and it'll be like, yeah, he's the greatest player of all time. It's like he underperformed, but like you still see the talent. It like to me, especially for a position like running back, like you're saying, a lot of times, and it's hard to find running backs that aren't products of their environment. I mean, every player is at any position to an extent. Yeah. But who's the guy? I always think about this, like especially when you have like a great offense like that. Who are the guys that make it tick? It wasn't Clyde. No one thought, man, if they didn't have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they would really struggled on offense. No, it was about Burrow, it was about Jamar, and it was about Chase. I don't even think it was that much about Terrace Marshall. I think he really came on the scene a little bit after, but it was those three guys. It was those three guys that were so great. And Jefferson kind of got overshadowed, but he was still great. If you go back and watch his LSU games, Jefferson's still making insane plays all the time.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think that's a huge factor. I don't know how that happens though. I don't know. To me, when I was watching those guys, I was like, I don't really think that Clyde's on the level of these other dudes.
That was the biggest thing, was Andy Reid got caught up in the Brian Westbrook. Why is Brian Westbrook your target player? I'm not against Brian Westbrook. I think he was a good running back. He did his job for Andy Reid. But when you have a Jonathan Taylor where you could be like, okay, who could Jonathan Taylor become? And he runs like Adrian Peterson. That's the type of play. Now, the chances of him becoming Adrian Peterson. The best comparison for him was Ezekiel Elliott. Coming out of Wisconsin, was just pound the rock, 2,000 yards pretty much every year, just absolutely carried that team. Why would you not want Ezekiel Elliott? Because you see what Saquon Barkley, you see what these Big Ten guys do when they come into the NFL. They know how to run the football because that's what they do. LSU wasn't a running team, and I understand that the Chiefs aren't a running team. And so they were like, oh, we really want this guy that can just get into space. Why didn't they go after Swift? That was Swift's thing, was he can get in space and he's nasty. I think that was crazy. I mean, they just reached, and I don't know. I don't understand why teams reach like that. Obviously sometimes it works out, and it's way easier to point out the bad ones over the good ones.
Yeah, and hindsight's always 20/20. Yeah, but at the time, both of us, we were still,
I mean, everybody was shocked when they took. I was thinking I was like, maybe they go running back here. That could be smart.
But you didn't think Clyde?
And I was like, I scouted J.K., Jonathan Taylor, and DeAndre Swift. I didn't even scout Clyde because he wasn't in. I was like, Yeah,
Well, because you thought the Ravens were going to go running
yeah.
back.
I was
first two
like
rounds.
Ravens. If they could go second round running back, I would love that, and I wanted them to get J.K. I had him as my number one running back, but which look at that, turned out pretty good. I had J.K., then Jonathan Taylor, then DeAndre Swift. I think I did solid in my rankings, but when you watch that and you're like, okay, this guy was like a third round grade. And they were coming off that was after the Super Bowl, right? I want to say, yeah. You're coming off winning the Super Bowl, and your weakness was very clearly defense. Why are they not going defense? And they just fell in love with this offensive thing, and I don't know. It's wild to me that happened. I just wasn't expecting it at all.
Yeah. All right, you want to talk about the Saints